The Galactic Survival Program had been running for 3,000 years. Every cycle, the best warriors and survivors from across the galaxy came to prove themselves on dangerous planets. These planets were called. They had poison air, deadly animals, and whether that could kill most beings in hours. Coordinator Vel sat in her office on the observation ship. She was tall and thin, with see-through skin and 4 large eyes that could see in many directions at once. Her job was simple. She watched candidates try to survive. Most of them died. Some of them lived. All of them taught the galaxy something about their species. Today she was reading files for the new batch of candidates. Most were normal. They sent their usual warriors. These beings were huge, with natural armor on their skin like stone plates. They sent their hunters. These creatures were fast and had poisoned spines on their backs. Everything was as expected. Then Vel saw the human file. She stopped reading. She read it again. Then she called her assistant into the room. It was a small creature with many tentacles and nervous eyes. He came quickly when Vel called. He always came quickly. Coordinator Vel was not someone you kept waiting. Vel said slowly, "Tell me about this human candidate." Looked at the file on her screen. His name is Coordinator. He comes from Earth. His government sent him for the trial. I can read that myself. Tell me about his equipment request. His tentacles twisted together. This was a sign of worry. He has requested no equipment, Coordinator. Vel was quiet for a long moment. No equipment, she repeated. Yes, Coordinator. He said he does not want the survival kit. The survival kit was standard for all candidates. It included a plasma shield for protection from animals. It included a water purifier because most water was poison. It included emergency food, medical supplies, and a beacon to call for rescue. No one had ever refused the kit. The kit was the only reason most candidates survived past the first day. Does he know which planet he is going to? Vel asked. 7 Coordinator, he was informed. 7 was one of the worst in the program. The rain there was acid. It could burn through metal in hours and through flesh in minutes. The plants were alive in ways that plants should not be alive. They moved. They hunted. They ate things that got too close. The temperature changed by 60 degrees between day and night, and the animals were the worst of all. Pack hunters with teeth like knives. Solo predators with enough poison to kill in seconds. He knows all this, Vel said, and he still wants no equipment. Yes, Coordinator. He said it would be like camping at home. He said it should be fun. Vel had studied humans before. All coordinators studied humans. Earth was classified as a Category 12. There were only 17 Category 12 planets in the known galaxy. Earth had crushing gravity, a toxic atmosphere full of oxygen, water that fell from the sky, and billions of competing life forms all trying to kill each other at all times. Humans had evolved there. They had not just survived. They had taken over the entire planet. But still, Vel thought no rational being would go to 7 without equipment. Even humans had limits. This one must be crazy, or suicidal, or both. Show me his background, she said. Pulled up more information. The human was 32 years old by Earth counting. He had no military training. He had no special genetic modifications. He worked a normal job in a normal city. The only unusual thing in his file was a note about his childhood. He was raised partly by his grandmother, Red. She taught him what the humans call traditional skills, making fire, finding food, building shelter, hunting and fishing. These are common skills for his species. They were common long ago, Coordinator. Most modern humans have forgotten them, but some families still pass them down. Vel thought about this. On most planets, survival skills were things you learned in military training. They were specialized, rare, but humans apparently taught these skills to their children as family tradition, as if staying alive on it was just something everyone should know how to do. His grandmother, Vel said, What does her file say? Searched for a moment. She survived something called the Korean War, coordinator, and something called the economic crisis. The file says she raised 6 children with very little resources during hard times. So she was a survival expert. No coordinator, she was a farmer, and later a shopkeeper. Survival was just part of her normal life. Vel leaned back in her chair. This was the thing about humans that made them so strange. For most species, survival was an emergency. It was something that happened when things went wrong. But for humans, survival was just life. They came from a world where everything was trying to kill them, and they had lived there so long that they forgot it was supposed to be hard. Approve his request, Vel said finally. His tentacles twisted. Coordinator, are you sure? He will certainly die. Probably, Vel agreed. But the council wants entertainment, and watching this human try to survive without equipment will certainly provide it. Position extra observation drones around him. I want to capture everything. Yes, coordinator. After left, Vel sat alone in her office looking at the human's file. His photograph showed a young man with black hair and calm eyes. He was smiling slightly, as if he knew a joke that no one else understood. Good luck, human, Vel said to the empty room. You are going to need it. But somewhere deep in her mind, a small voice wondered if maybe she was wrong. Maybe this human knew exactly what he was doing. Maybe the joke he was smiling about was on all of them. She pushed the thought away. No one could survive 7 without equipment. It was impossible. The trial would begin in 3 days. The drop pod hit the ground hard, felt his teeth shake from the impact. Then the door opened and hot air rushed in. It smelled like metal and something burning. He smiled. It smelled like adventure. He stepped out onto the surface of 7 wearing only his cotton shirt, cargo pants, and the hiking boots his grandmother had given him before he left Earth. She had worn these same boots 50 years ago when she walked through the mountains as a young woman. They were old but strong, like her. Around the planet, 47 other candidates were also landing. Each of them carried the full survival kit. Plasma shields hummed to life. Water purifiers beeped as they turned on. Emergency beacons were tested and confirmed working. Picked up a rock from the ground near his pod. It was gray and hard with sharp edges, good for making tools. He put it in his pocket and started walking. High above the planet, the observation ship floated in orbit. Coordinator Vel stood in the main viewing room with representatives from 38 different species. They had all come to watch the trial. Giant screens showed feeds from hundreds of cameras placed around the planet. One screen showed only. Why is he just standing there? Asked Ambassador. He was a tall and covered in shimmering scales. His poisoned spine stood up slightly, showing his confusion. On screen was looking at the sky. He was looking at the position of the sun. Then he looked at the ground, at the way shadows fell across the rocks and plants. He nodded to himself and started walking in a specific direction. He is navigating, said quietly, without instruments. Impossible. How can he know which way to go? Humans can determine direction from the position of their star. It is an old skill. Most species need technology for navigation. Humans can do it with their eyes. Walked for 2 hours. The temperature was already starting to rise as the sun climbed higher. Other candidates on other screens were activating their cooling systems. They were sweating heavily inside their armor. They were seeking shade. Just kept walking. Sweat appeared on his skin, then disappeared. His body was cooling itself naturally, releasing heat through the water on his skin. It was a biological system that most species found disgusting. To humans, it was just normal. He found a stream around midday. The water was slightly green and smelled wrong. Sensors on the observation ship showed it was mildly corrosive. It would burn most organic tissue on contact. Knelt beside the stream. He dipped one finger into the water. Then he lifted his finger to his mouth and tasted it. The viewing room went completely silent. "Did he just drink acid?" Ambassador asked. "He tasted it," Coordinator Vel said. Her 4 eyes were all focused on the screen. "He is testing it. The concentration is low enough that human skin can resist it for short periods. He is determining if it is safe." Spat out the water and shook his head. "Not safe for drinking, but useful for other things." He made a mental note of the location and kept walking. By afternoon he had gathered many things. Certain plants that he smelled and examined carefully. Long straight sticks, flexible vines, broad leaves that were thick and waxy. He carried everything in a bundle on his back, tied together with strips of vine. "What is he collecting?" someone asked. "Building materials," answered. "I believe he is going to construct a shelter." With plants, the acid rain will destroy any organic structure in hours. "Perhaps let us watch." As the sun began to set, found what he was looking for. A rocky overhang jutted out from a hillside. It was not deep enough to be a cave, but it provided cover from above. The ground beneath it was dry and flat. He put down his bundle and got to work. First, he cleared the ground of sharp rocks and biting insects. Then he began building a frame from his sticks, leaning them against the rock overhang at an angle. He tied them together with vines, testing each connection to make sure it was strong. "He is building quickly," Coordinator Vel observed. "He has done this before. Many times, according to his file. His grandmother taught him when he was a child. They would go into the mountains together and live without modern equipment for days at a time." "For training." "No, Coordinator, for fun. Humans call it camping." Covered his frame with the broad, waxy leaves, layering them like scales on a fish. Each layer overlapped the one below it. Water would run down the surface without getting through. He had built structures like this 100 times in the Korean mountains with his grandmother. The materials were different here, but the principles were the same. As darkness fell, he pulled out his gray rock. He had found another rock earlier, one with iron in it. He struck them together over a pile of dried plant material. Sparks flew. The material began to smoke, leaned down and blew gently, feeding oxygen to the tiny ember. Fire bloomed in his hands. In the viewing room, several species made sounds of shock. Fire was something most civilizations had moved past long ago. It was primitive, dangerous, uncontrolled. Seeing someone create it manually without any technology was like watching ancient history come alive. Fed his fire carefully, adding small sticks, then larger ones. Soon he had a strong flame burning at the entrance to his shelter. The heat pushed back the cold night air. The light pushed back the darkness. Outside, acid rain began to fall. It hissed against the rocks. It sizzled on the plants. Other candidates across the planet activated their emergency shields, huddling inside protective bubbles of energy. Sat in his shelter, warm and dry, watching the rain fall. The waxy leaves turned the acid away just like they turned away the rain back on their home planet. Plants evolved and knew how to protect themselves. He had simply borrowed their protection. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It showed an old woman with white hair and kind eyes, standing in front of a small house in the mountains. "Day 1 complete, grandmother," he said to the picture. "Just like camping at home. You would like it here. The stars are different, but the fire is the same." Then he started to sing. It was an old Korean song his grandmother had taught him. A song about mountains and rivers and never giving up no matter how hard life became. In the viewing room, no one spoke. They just watched the human singing by his fire while acid rain fell all around him. "What is happening?" Ambassador finally asked. Coordinator Vel did not have an answer. Nothing in her 3,000 years of running survival trials had prepared her for this. "I do not know," she admitted, "but I am beginning to think we have underestimated this species." 3 days had passed on 7. 7 candidates had already quit. They pressed their emergency beacons and were pulled off the planet, alive but ashamed. 2 warriors had been killed by pack hunters during the night. A hunter had died when the temperature dropped too fast and his body could not adjust. Had built a fishing trap. The stream with the acid water also had fish in it. They were ugly things, with too many eyes and scales that looked like metal. But they were protein, and protein meant survival. Had woven a basket from flexible branches, leaving a small opening that fish could swim into but not out of. He placed it in a slow part of the stream where the current would push fish toward the trap. By morning he had 3 fish. "Explain this to me," Ambassador demanded. He had not slept well. Watching the human succeed was making him uncomfortable. How is an unmodified being catching animals with sticks? Coordinator Vel had spent the night reading everything she could find about humans. The information was disturbing. "Humans have been catching fish this way for over 50,000 years, she said. "It is not special technology. It is just knowledge passed down through generations." "But how does he know how to build the trap? How does he know where to place it? How does he know which fish are safe to eat?" "His grandmother taught him." Made a frustrated sound. "You keep saying that, his grandmother. One old female taught him all of this." On Earth, elders pass knowledge to the young. It is considered a sacred duty. His grandmother survived wars and hardship. She learned everything about staying alive and she taught it to him because she loved him. This is how humans work. On the screen was cooking his fish over the fire. He had cleaned them carefully, removing parts that might be poisonous. Then he placed them on flat rocks near the flames, letting the heat cook the meat slowly. The smell of cooking food drifted through his campsite. Something in the forest noticed the smell. The observation drones detected movement about 200 meters from its position. Something large was coming closer. The computers identified it instantly, an apex predator. 6 legs, each ending in hooked claws. A body covered in armored plates. A tail with a stinger full of venom strong enough to kill in 30 seconds. "Alert the human," someone in the viewing room said. "We cannot," Coordinator Vel replied. "Trial rules forbid any communication with candidates. He must survive on his own." "Then he is dead. That creature has killed 8 candidates in past trials. No one has ever defeated one." On screen stopped eating. His head turned slightly, listening. Then he slowly put down his food and stood up. "He knows something is there," said. "How can he know?" Humans have very good hearing and very good instincts. Their ancestors were both predators and prey. They learned to sense danger before they could see it. Moved to his shelter and picked up something he had been working on for the past 2 days. It was a spear. He had found a straight, strong branch and spent hours sharpening one end with his rocks. Then he had hardened the point in his fire, making it as tough as bone. It was a primitive weapon. Against the armored predator, it looked like a toy. Did not seem worried. He moved away from his camp into the forest. The observers watched through drones as he tracked through the undergrowth. His steps were silent. His breathing was slow. He moved the way his grandmother had taught him to move when hunting deer in the mountains. Careful, patient, aware. The predator was also moving. It was circling around, trying to get behind him. It was smart. It had killed many creatures before. It knew how to hunt. But it had never hunted a human. Stopped in a small clearing. He stood very still, his spear held low. He was not looking at the predator. He was listening for it, feeling the small vibrations in the ground through his boots. "What is he doing?" whispered. "Waiting," Vel answered. The predator burst from the trees. It was fast, faster than anything that size should be. Its claws reached for his chest. Its tail raised to strike. Moved. Not backward, where the creature expected him to go. He moved forward, ducking under the claws, sliding past the armored body. And as he moved, his spear thrust upward into the one spot on the creature that had no armor. The soft tissue behind the skull, where the nerve bundle connected the brain to the body. The spear went in. The spear twisted. The creature's legs folded beneath it and it crashed to the ground, dead before it finished falling. The viewing room was silent. Pulled his spear free and examined it. The point was still sharp. Good craftsmanship. Grandmother would be proud. Impossible, someone said. No, Coordinator Vel replied. Her voice was strange, almost afraid. Not impossible, just human. But how? How did he know where to strike? How did he know that spot was weak? Vel checked her files. He has been observing the local wildlife since he arrived. Every animal he sees, he watches. He learns how they move, where they are strong, where they are weak. He has been studying this planet like a classroom. In 3 days. In 3 days, humans learn very quickly when their lives depend on it, and on their planet, their lives always depend on it. On screen was dragging the predator back to his camp. It was heavy, but humans were stronger than they looked. Their dense muscles and efficient bodies could work for hours without stopping. That night he ate predator meat cooked over his fire. He saved the creature's armor plates, thinking they might be useful later. He kept one claw as a tool and another as a weapon. Nothing on 7 attacked him after that. Word spread among the predators in ways that even the observers did not understand. The human was dangerous. The human was not prey. The human was the most dangerous thing in the forest. Slept well that night. In his dreams, he was a child again, following his grandmother through the Korean mountains. She was teaching him how to catch rabbits. The same principles applied anywhere: patience, observation, one perfect strike. Same principles, he mumbled in his sleep, just bigger. In the viewing room, Coordinator Vel finally understood what she was watching. This was not a candidate trying to survive a trial. This was a predator from a Category 12 visiting a Category 10 and finding it almost too easy. She began updating her reports. The galaxy needed to know what humans were really capable of. They would not believe her, but they would see the footage, and then they would understand. On the 10th day, heard something that did not belong in the forest. Footsteps. Not animal footsteps. These were careful, deliberate steps made by someone who was trying to be quiet but did not quite know how. He picked up his spear and moved toward the sound. Through the trees, he saw a figure stumbling through the undergrowth. It was another human. A woman, young, with black hair tied back and dirt on her face. She wore the remains of a survival suit, but most of it was torn and broken. One arm hung at her side, wrapped in strips of cloth that were stained with blood. Lowered his spear. "Hello," he called out in Korean. "Are you hurt?" The woman spun around, raising a small knife. Then she saw him and her eyes went wide. "You," she said. "You are the crazy one, the one without gear." "My name is—" "I know your name. Everyone knows your name. The whole galaxy is watching you." She lowered her knife slowly. "My name is—" Walked closer. He could see her injuries now, cuts on her arms and legs, a bruise on her face. Her wrapped arm was probably broken or badly sprained. "What happened to your equipment?" "Rockslide on day 2. I was crossing a canyon and the whole wall came down. My shield was crushed. My water purifier was destroyed. I saved my beacon, but I did not want to use it. I wanted to finish the trial." "You have been surviving without equipment for 8 days. Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Barely. I found some water that was not too poisonous. I ate plants that did not make me sick. I slept in holes and under rocks. It has not been fun." Nodded. He remembered his first days in the mountains with his grandmother. It had not been fun either until he learned how to do it properly. "Come with me. I have a camp." Stared at him. "A camp? What kind of camp can you have without equipment?" "The kind my grandmother taught me to make. Come, I will show you." He led her through the forest, moving along paths he had learned over the past 10 days. He knew this area now. He knew where the predators slept during the day. He knew where the safe water sources were. He knew which plants were food and which were poison. When they reached his camp, stopped walking, her mouth fell open. It was not just a camp anymore. It was almost a home. Had expanded his shelter into a proper structure with walls and a roof. He had built a smoking rack where strips of predator meat hung drying in the sun and smoke. He had dug a clay-lined pit for storing purified water. He had made tools from bones and stones and sharp pieces of armor plate. He had even built a simple chair from bent branches so he could sit comfortably by his fire. Hal asked, "How did you do all this?" "Time and knowledge. My grandmother used to say that survival is not about what you have. It is about what you know. Equipment is helpful, but skills are better. Skills never break. Skills never run out of power." Sat down heavily on a flat rock. She looked exhausted. "My grandmother used to say something similar. She grew up poor after the war. She said you should always know how to live with nothing because sometimes nothing is all you have." Smart woman. She was. She died 3 years ago. I joined this trial because I wanted to prove something to myself. I wanted to show that her lessons meant something. Looked at her injured arm. "I think I have failed." Knelt beside her and gently took her arm. He unwrapped the dirty bandages and looked at the injury. It was not broken, just badly sprained with a deep cut that was starting to get infected. He had seen injuries like this before. "This will hurt," he said, "but I can help it heal properly." He gathered certain plants he had identified during his exploration. Some had properties that killed infection. Others reduced swelling. He mashed them together with water and applied the paste to her wound, then wrapped it with clean leaves tied down with thin vines. "My grandmother taught me this too," he said. "She learned it from her mother, who learned it from her mother, knowledge going back hundreds of years." High above, in the observation ship, the viewing room was very quiet. "He is a healer too," Ambassador said. "Is there anything humans cannot do?" Coordinator Vel did not answer. She was reading new reports about humans. The more she learned, the more worried she became. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They were not the most durable, but they were the most adaptable. Put them in any environment, no matter how hostile, and they would figure out how to survive. And then they would figure out how to thrive. And then they would figure out how to dominate. It was terrifying. On the planet below was eating her first real meal in days. Had given her smoked meat and clean water. He had shown her how his fishing trap worked and how to identify safe plants. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "I am competition. If I survive, it reduces your achievement." Shrugged, "You are Korean. We are far from home. My grandmother would never forgive me if I let another Korean die alone on a strange planet." That is a very old-fashioned way of thinking. My grandmother was an old-fashioned woman, but she was usually right about things. They talked late into the night, sharing stories about their families and their homes. Had grown up in a small town near the ocean. Her grandmother had taught her to fish and to preserve food for winter. Different skills than mountain knowledge, but just as valuable. "I know how to make kimchi," said. "From almost anything, my grandmother's secret recipes." "Can you make it from plants?" Looked at him with surprise, then laughed. A real laugh this time with actual joy in it. "Is that a challenge?" "Maybe. I would like to taste kimchi again. I miss the food from home." "Then I will try. Help me find the right plants and I will make something." By the 15th day, they had dug a fermentation pit. Had identified plants with the right properties, things that were spicy and sour and full of good bacteria. Helped her prepare them, cutting and mixing according to her grandmother's methods. They buried the mixture in the pit and covered it with leaves. "It will take time," said, "but it should work." In the viewing room, the observers had no idea what they were watching. 2 humans were making alien vegetables fermented in a hole in the ground on a. "What is the purpose of this activity?" someone asked. Coordinator Vel had researched this too. "It is called cooking," she said. "Humans transform their food before eating it. They use fire and time and biological processes to make it safer and more nutritious. They have been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years." But why? Why spend so much effort on food? Because to humans, food is not just survival, it is culture, it is family, it is love. Vel watched the two humans working together, talking and laughing. They are not just surviving now, they are living. There is a difference. Ambassador's scales shifted colors, showing deep unease. "These creatures are very strange." "Yes," Vel agreed, "and I suspect the galaxy is not ready for them at all." The trial ended on the 30th day. Rescue ships landed across 7 to collect the survivors. Of the 48 candidates who started, only 7 were still alive. 3 warriors had survived by staying together and using their combined strength to fight off predators. 2 hunters had survived by finding deep caves and hiding from everything, and both humans had survived by making it into their home. The awards ceremony was held on the observation ship. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from dozens of species. They had all come to see the survivors, to honor them, and to learn from them. The warriors entered first. They wore their ceremonial armor, heavy plates of metal that showed their strength and status. The hunters came next in flowing robes that displayed their tribe colors. Everyone clapped for them. Then the humans entered. Wore his hiking boots, his cargo pants, and a simple cotton shirt. The same clothes he had been wearing for 30 days. They were worn now, patched with alien materials but still holding together. Walked beside him in similar condition, her arm fully healed thanks to medicine. They did not wear ceremonial clothes. They did not try to look impressive. They just walked in looking like exactly what they were. 2 people who had spent a month camping on a dangerous planet and had enjoyed most of it. The hall went completely silent. Coordinator Vel stepped forward to speak. "Human," she announced, her voice filling the room. "You have completed the 7 survival trial without any provided equipment. This has never happened before in 3,000 years of trials. The Council wishes to know, how did you do it?" Every eye in the room turned too. Dozens of species waited for his answer. They expected him to talk about secret human technology or genetic modifications or advanced training programs. Thought about the question for a moment, then he spoke. "My grandmother survived a war. When she was young, soldiers came to her village and took everything. She had to flee into the mountains with nothing but the clothes she was wearing. She lived there for 3 months, eating what she could find, sleeping in caves, hiding from people who wanted to kill her." The hall was very quiet, no one moved. "My grandfather walked across the entire peninsula in winter. He was trying to find his family after the country split in 2. He had no food, no warm clothes, no map. He just walked until he found them. It took him 40 days. Paused, remembering the stories he had heard as a child. His grandmother's voice telling him about hard times. His grandfather's hands showing him how to start a fire. "My mother raised 3 children during an economic crisis. There was no money, no jobs, no hope, but she never gave up. She found ways to feed us, to keep us warm, to keep us in school. My father worked 16-hour days in factories so we could have better lives. He ruined his health, but he never complained." He looked around the room at all the alien faces watching him. "Humans do not survive because we are strong. We are not the strongest. We do not survive because we are fast. We are not the fastest. We survive because we refuse to give up. Because our ancestors gave us everything they had so that we could keep going. Every human alive today is descended from thousands of generations of survivors. People who faced impossible situations and found ways to live. That knowledge, that determination is in our blood." He glanced at who nodded. Also added, "This planet was not very difficult. The acid rain was annoying but manageable. The temperature changes were like Korean spring, going from cold morning to hot afternoon, and the predators were scary at first, but less scary than the wild dogs in my grandmother's village. Someone in the hall made a choking sound. Less scary than dogs, Ambassador repeated. You killed an apex predator. That creature has ended more candidates than any other threat on the planet. Shrugged, it was big, but it was predictable. Once I understood how it hunted, avoiding it was simple. Korean mountain cats are smaller but much more clever. My grandmother taught me to respect cats. She never mentioned anything about six-legged lizards. The hall erupted into noise. Representatives from every species were talking at once. Some were scared. Some were amazed. Some were already thinking about what it would mean to have humans as allies or enemies. Coordinator Vel raised her hand for silence. Human. The Galactic Council formally recognizes your achievement. You have proven that humanity deserves respect among the stars. Before either human could respond, Ambassador stepped forward. The Imperium would like to request that you train our survival specialists. Your knowledge would be invaluable. The Coalition makes the same request, a deep voice added. More voices joined in. Species that had spent centuries competing with each other were now competing to make friends with two humans from a small planet called Earth. Coordinator Vel cut through the noise. The Council claims first rights. We need to update our classifications immediately. Earth must be re-evaluated, and we need humans to help us understand what survival truly means. Looked at, do you think they would let us go home first? I promised my grandmother I would bring her something from space. What were you thinking? He smiled. The fermented plants we made, she would love them, new ingredients for her recipes. Laughed, she sounds like my grandmother, always looking for new things to pickle. Korean grandmothers are all the same. That is why Korea survived so long. Our grandmothers refused to let it fail. They were given permission to return to Earth for a brief visit before their new duties began. The Council sent them in the fastest ship available, along with containers full of their fermented plants. Once grandmother opened the container, she sniffed it carefully. Then she tasted a small bit. Then she nodded slowly. Not bad, Grandmother Park said, but next time use more garlic. Grandmother, it was made on an alien planet. They do not have garlic there. Then bring garlic with you next time. A proper Korean should always carry garlic. Laughed and hugged her. She was small and old and the strongest person he had ever known. 3 months later, the Galactic Council officially changed Earth's classification. It was no longer just a Category 12. It was now listed as Do Not Engage under any circumstances. Not because humans were hostile, but because any species that went camping on for fun was not something the galaxy was prepared to handle. In her office, Coordinator Vel filed her final report on the survival trial. At the bottom, she added a personal note. Recommendation: make friends with humans. Do not make them enemies. They have been surviving impossible situations for 300,000 years. They will be surviving long after the rest of us are gone. On Earth, Grandmother Park was teaching her secret kimchi recipe. Sat nearby, drinking tea and watching two stubborn Korean women argue about the proper amount of red pepper. The galaxy had a lot to learn about humans, but for now this was enough. Family, food, and the knowledge that no matter what the universe threw at them, they would find a way to survive. That was what humans did. That was what they had always done.